So you know that in the last couple of videos, I was speaking about how you want to try to touch the dreams. You want to touch the things that are within you, and you want to feel the reality of them. And then I was saying how Neville said you want to let go of the external world while you imagine something. And there's something that happens in your body when you actually feel the reality of what you've done. For me, what happens is a gentle, natural smile almost overcomes my face. And it's not something I force. It's something that just happens from feeling the reality. Now, Neville had the same thing happen to him. And people asked him, so when he would go into the silence at the end of his lectures, someone must have obviously kept their eyes open or something and watched Neville. And they noticed that Neville's chin was almost lifted up and he was smiling, like gently smiling. And someone asked him if that's necessary, if you have to have a smile or if you have to raise your chin. And Neville's answer is fascinating. But before I get to his answer, I have the same thing that happens to me, and it's a consequence of feeling the reality. And so Neville's response was, I don't even know I'm doing it. Basically, that's what he replied with. I don't even really know I'm doing it. Or I wouldn't call it important because I'm not really paying attention to that. And do you see how the person who was watching him, asking him the question, just probably out of curiosity, do you have to smile or raise your chin? And Neville's saying, I don't even notice that. That means that Neville's not paying attention at all to the external. There really isn't a body in his mind when he's imagining. His body's just reacting to what he's doing within himself, and he's immersed himself in imagination in that moment. And so he could be smiling, but he's not paying attention to the smile. He's not paying attention to anything outside of himself. And so another way of framing that, you could say, is when you imagine something, you don't want to think about externalizing it while you're imagining. You just want to focus on imagining it. You don't want to think about it, because if the moment you start to when you think about externalizing it in the moment, you've just kind of left it. You actually left the imaginal act. And now you're focusing on if you're smiling, if your body's reacting perfectly fine, or, you feel like you're going to mess it all up again. You think you're going to mess things up if you try to go down that route. And really, honestly, that's just self-doubt. That's a form of self-doubt. And so the same thing happens to me, is that I have the exact same response as that. Mine's sort of like, I'm not sure if I lift my chin, but it's just this natural reaction to the wish fulfilled. It's like you immerse yourself enough into it to where you naturally have this response. It's a consequence of actually immersing yourself in the imaginal act. Is it necessary? I mean, I would just say it's a consequence of feeling the reality. So if you felt the reality, you most likely will have that response, or something like that response. But I just really loved Neville's answer to that, because it goes to show you that he's not focusing on if you just pay attention to the questions you ask about it, you'll notice that, is the question hyper-focused on the external, or are we keeping things within imagination only? And a lot of times the questions are hyper-focusing on the external while you're imagining, when you really should just be focusing on doing it. You should be focusing on imagining it. You should be focusing on just keeping it inside imagination. Let's just rearrange the furniture in here. Let's move the couch that's on the left side to the right side, and not try to think about it happening on the outside while I'm moving it. Let me just move it real quick. Let me just put myself here and imagine from that place, feel the reality of it. And because the moment I leave that focus, I'm going to start doubting. I'm going to start becoming really nervous or really scared, or I just flat out just won't even bother with the thought anymore. It almost becomes stupid to think it. Like, why would I even imagine that? But yeah, I feel like if you can just not think about externalizing it while you're imagining it, and just focus as the rule should just be, I'm just going to imagine this because I want to imagine it. Dream because you want to dream. Just do it because you want to do it. If you keep it simple, then you can focus on you can just focus on that throughout the entire process, rather than, like in Neville's case, he was in the army, thinking about the army, thinking about if it's going to work, thinking about the disapproval, thinking about if his body is smiling or if his, chin is up. Like, you have to remove all of that while you're in the imaginal act. And it's in that removal. And I have a meditation called I Am the Creator meditation, which I think does a pretty good job at trying to get you to let go of the outside and just bring it within oneself. You get more clarity when you remove it. You actually know exactly what you want to do, and you'll get motivated if you do it that way. You're actually headed towards what you're imagining rather than, because I remember Neville said that in the army when he imagined like that. He said for 9 days he was just filled with like a very good feeling about leaving. And he would shave his face and he just felt like he had a good feeling about leaving because of what he was doing with it, what he did within himself. So it's in that moment of potency. Someone corrected me on that. I was saying potency. It's in that moment where you make it potent and you feel the reality that changes you. That's what I'm trying to get across pretty much in every video. I'm trying to get that across. Because what we're really doing is we're changing the imaginal man inside of imagination. That is what we're doing. We're changing that being. If I can get you to see that you're an imaginal being first, that lives in imagination as well as you do in a physical world, if I can get you to see that you're in a body, then you'll start to rearrange you'll make rearranging the imagination important. You rearrange yourself in it. You change yourself in imagination. That's where you're changing yourself. Truly, that's where you should focus on. That's why I said when you are imagining things, try not to even think about externalizing things. You're just focusing on changing it in imagination. You're just changing what was said. You're changing the outcome. You're changing yourself in these scenarios. Just keep it within yourself. Say, I'm focusing on changing my imagination. That's all I'm going to focus on. If you can do that, then what does Neville say? He goes, you can imagine something. And then he's like, if I asked you, did that take place? What you just imagined? He's like, you might reply to me and say, well, it didn't really take place. He goes, the day will come where the internal act will be just as real to you, or will feel just as real to you as the external confirmation of that act. So he's saying that what you imagine will one day, you will accept it as if you would have accepted it on the outside. You'll one day accept your imagination that way. Those are very powerful words when you apply them. So next time you go to apply the imagination, just try to keep it in imagination. I'm just going to change myself in here. I'm just going to focus on moving myself in here. I'm going to reimagine a scenario in here. I'm going to feel the reality of something in here. I'm not going to think about what's going to happen tomorrow or on the outside of myself or even my body. I'm just going to focus on rearranging myself in here. I always try to focus on those words when I'm imagining something. I'm just changing it in here. I'm just focusing on it because I have the tendency to want to go outside. The moment I go inside myself, I have the tendency to want to leave and go on the outside. It's just like a natural habit. I go within and I want to go without. But I want to stay within for a little bit longer. If I can just keep myself staying within and just keep myself here, then I'll find more of my power. Yeah, I mean, that's all I had. That's really what I had. So I wouldn't say it's like you have to absolutely have a smile on your face, and you don't want to force a smile. It's just what happens when you feel the reality. And in Neville's words, he doesn't even know he's doing it. That's how focused he is on what he's imagining. He says you want to imagine something and have it crowd all other ideas out of the mind. To where it's just this one idea. It's just this thing. In this moment, you're just focusing on this one idea. That's how you can start to trust your imagination, is when you just start trusting it in these small ways. I think that when you feel the reality of what you're imagining, you're trusting in what you're imagining, even if it's for a moment of time. That will teach you how to trust yourself. Because imagination is within us, so we're trusting what is within us. That's what we're trusting in. But yeah, I just want to talk about that one small, I just found that answer fascinating by Neville. Doesn't even know he's doing it. But okay, that's all I have for this one. Again, my books are out. I do one-on-ones, and I do live streaming and Q&As, and I talk about all these topics. And Yeah. And I do want to stress that it feels extremely, you can't help but smile because it feels so extremely freeing when you feel the reality of a beautiful dream.